So our investigation was running in parallel with the Brittany Higgins investigation. And initially we were told that the AFP's top gun, best man had been put on our job because it was such a significant matter. There were multiple victims and very serious crimes. And then quite soon afterwards, we were told that he'd been moved off our investigation and had been put on the Brittany Higgins investigation. I mean, the contrast between the way the Brittany Higgins case, the attention that it seemed to get from the DPP compared to what we experienced is quite stark. So for one thing, the director, Shane Drumgold, he took on Brittany Higgins' case himself, which is quite rare, as I understand it, for the director to become that involved. In our case, in contrast, we had 3 different prosecutors. So not only did we have 3 different prosecutors, but the final one that we had didn't appear to be across all of the evidence that he needed to be across. And ultimately, it's my belief that the disputed facts hearing trial fell apart on that basis. So I was, I think 11, or I might have just turned 12 years old. And I met Stephen Mitchell at a youth centre in Canberra. I'd left the AIS, I'd quit gymnastics by that point. I had just won my first climbing competition, which Stephen Mitchell had seen me at. And I guess I was on his radar. He had different girls had different status. And some of us he kept more as girlfriends, and others were more casual, I guess you could put it that way. When it was brought to my attention that the Victims of Crime Commissioner had escorted Brittany Higgins into court every day and stood with her when she was being grilled by the media, I mean, it's really devastating. We were children when these crimes were committed against us. We could have really used some support in dealing with the criminal justice process, in dealing with the media. A number of our group really struggled through this process. Some became suicidal. And at no point did we receive the support that we were seeing Brittany Higgins receive. It's very hard to take and hard to understand as well. Very hard to understand. When you've got the director of public prosecutions taking on the case themselves, and you've got the Victims of Crime Commissioner escorting Brittany into court every day, and here are we not getting any referrals, not getting any phone calls, having 3 different prosecutors, no one meeting with me in the lead up to a trial in which I was to be cross-examined about events that occurred when I was a child. I mean, the discrepancy in the level of treatment is it's hard to miss. At no point was I given any kind of direct referral. I didn't even know there was a Victims of Crime Commissioner, to be perfectly honest. And even when I feared for my life because of the criminal proceedings, I still didn't receive a referral to the Victims of Crime Commissioner. And just bear in mind, we were victims by this stage because we'd obtained a guilty plea. We weren't just complainants, we were victims in the eyes of the law. So the officer that we had the whole way through the investigation, Paul Kalatsis, was fantastic, and having that continuity allowed us to develop a relationship of trust with him and police that helped the investigation. It meant that when other victims came to me to disclose their own abuse, I felt comfortable passing them on to police because I knew how they were going to be treated, and that's invaluable. At the end of the day, it was the way police conducted themselves that allowed us to have the successful verdict that we did. When you grow up being groomed, you internalise all the shame and the guilt. That all changed when my own daughter reached the same age I was when the abuse was occurring. Because all of a sudden, you're not remembering what happened to you. You're seeing it for what it was. And looking at my daughter and realising that if anyone did anything like that to her, I'd murder them. That changed everything. And that's when I started to think about coming forward.